Hello and welcome everyone to this Albion Online Dev Talk. My name as always is Henkys. I'm the Game Director for Albion Online. And today I bring you the first of two videos that will cover the faction warfare feature that's coming to Albion with the Merlyn update. This video will cover what is faction warfare, how do I join a faction, how do I earn faction points and standing, and what types of rewards can I get. So let's first take a look at what is faction warfare. Well, faction warfare is a new system coming to Albion that allows players to participate in the conflict between cities and thus participate in open world PvP warfare on the Royal Continent without fearing the repercussions of the reputation system. By doing so, players will also generate faction points, which will in turn generate resources and items that are then originating from these cities, and it is thus part of our plan of strengthening the economic role of the cities on the Royal Continent. At the same time, all these items generated from faction warfare are also attractive to be used by players at all levels of play in Albion. Now let's take a look at how to join a faction in the faction warfare system. Players begin by joining up with the faction at the faction general in one of the 5 royal cities on the Royal Continent. Once they have joined with the faction, they will no longer be able to enter an opposing faction's capital, but on the plus side, they will now be able to attack other players and earn faction points. How exactly they're able to interact with other players is governed by a complex set of rules, but simply broken down is they can support members of their same faction, they can attack and loot everyone who is in an opposing faction. Blue flag players cannot interact with them, so they cannot heal faction players, and red flag players will still be able to interact with everyone. That means being able to attack everyone still. Note that while you're flagged for a faction, you will also be carrying the faction's emblem. This will be overriding your guild symbol on your cloak, and you will also be able to attack your guild members and possibly allied guilds if they joined up with a different faction. So effectively, the faction warfare system overrides guilds and alliances. Finally, flagging up for a faction also enables you to participate in the new activities coming with the faction warfare system, which are outpost capturing and faction trade runs. Of course, you can always decide to leave a faction again, and you do this in a similar way of how you would unflag from PvP. That means you basically have to be out of combat for a while, and it will take a moment to lose your faction flag. So how do you earn faction points and standing? Well, being able to attack other players is not the only benefit of joining a faction. While you're flagged up, you can also earn faction points for engaging in activities in the open world. The 3 activities that you can engage in to earn faction points are open world PvE, gathering and fishing, and outpost capture. If you're engaging in PvE, gathering and fishing, then the amount of faction points you're earning will depend on the amount of fame you're gaining. The idea here is that you can take the additional PvP risk for getting an additional reward from your open world activity. If you're engaging in outpost capture, the amount of points gained for the faction will depend on the amount of outposts you capture. And this is the PvP-focused activity. The faction points you earn will increase your standing with the faction, and an increased standing with the faction in turn will slightly boost the amount of faction points you're gaining with that faction. So this is a loyalty reward for staying with a particular faction. In addition, you can of course spend your faction points for rewards at the faction general in each city. So what faction warfare rewards can you get? Well, at the faction general you can buy the following types of rewards. First, there's City Heart Fragments. This is a particular new resource we're introducing with the faction warfare system. Each city will have its own type of City Heart Fragment, and these can be used in 2 ways. One, they can be used as a stand-in resource in refining, where they can be used to slightly reduce the amount of resources required to complete the refining process. And second, they can be used as a crafting ingredient for the other faction warfare items. The other two types of items you can get are faction warfare capes and mounts. The capes introduce, for the first time, capes with powerful passive abilities, which we'll cover in the second warfare video in more depth. And the faction mounts will be a completely new set of baby animals that you can grow out on your farm that will have a unique property per city that are similar to some of the rare mounts that we have in the open world, but should be more accessible. And again, we'll cover these in more depth in the next video. And this concludes our first look at the faction warfare system. We hope you're as excited as we are about the opportunity to join one of the factions fighting for the control of Albion and engage in exciting open world PvP battles. Please join us for the next faction warfare video, where we'll cover the activities that you can engage in more depth and cover each individual reward that you can earn. Stay tuned.